Hi everybody, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur, and I hope that you're doing well. It is Tuesday night, so I thought I'd throw together a quick Tag Tuesday book tag. In this case, it'll be a 2 for Tuesday tag, as I will be doing an ab workout, crunching through both the A and B tags that Jim at Books, Reading, and Stuff created. And Jim's channel is always just such a delight. For the A tag, I was tagged by my good friend Dario at Motley Reads. I'll link both those videos in the description box below, but let's get started. Prompt 1. A is for America. What do you consider the great American novel? For me, it's Beloved by Toni Morrison, a triumph of the imagination, a triumph of language, an absolute masterpiece, a book I will be forever rereading, an author I'll be forever rereading, or reading as I work through the final handful of her works that I have not yet read. But I do want to add in my other favorite Toni Hillerman. And that's because Toni Hillerman accomplishes in his Navajo Tribal Police series something that great fiction really can accomplish, and that is the ways in which, of course, we are immersed in the story, we're part of that world, but we start to then wonder about the real world context that can exist. And that's something Toni Hillerman does. He gets us to be curious about his own Navajo culture, but other Native American cultures as well, to understand the history, to understand the ways in which characters in his novels appreciate the culture or are working to preserve the culture. And these two books do that perhaps most masterfully. Listening Woman, which is the third book in his among his novels, deals with real world events. It deals with the Long Walk of the Navajo from the 19th century. It deals obliquely with the Wounded Knee occupation in 1973. And so reading this book, I was, of course, engrossed in a masterful police procedural mystery, but I was also curious about what was going on. It got me reading and learning about all of these other things that happened. I learned, it's thanks to this book that I was aware of, like, the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, what had been going on there, the horrifying things that had happened there. The Ghostway takes a different tack, and that's because Officer Jim Chi is embracing a lot of aspects of his own Navajo culture as a character, and he becomes a singer, and so the Ghostway is one of the songs that, of course, needs to be preserved, and he can be somebody who's learning these different songs to help preserve that culture. So, highly recommend Toni Hillerman, my two favorite Tonys. Prompt 2, A is for Arc. What character in literature has the most interesting character arc? History when it's bending towards justice. But besides that, we've got Dante the Pilgrim, not Dante the writer, but Dante the Pilgrim on his great journey through the Inferno, the Purgatorio, and the Paradiso. Two others that I really, really enjoy, though, would be Leto the Second, the Emperor, in, Children of Dune, and God Emperor of Dune. What a strange... He is a messiah gone wrong in some ways. And then most recently, the great Circe within Circe by Madeline Miller. This was fascinating to read and to explore and to see who she developed as a character and as an identity within the book. Loved it. Prompt 3. A is for Australia. What was the last book you read by an Australian author? Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey, and I did not enjoy it. Prompt 4. A is for Austin. What do you plan to read for Jane Austen July? I think Mansfield Park. I read Sense and Sensibility last year, and I really enjoyed it. Pride and Prejudice is fantastic. I think I'm going to go for this. I'm in the minority thinking I didn't enjoy Persuasion as much. Prompt 5. A is for Automobile. What is your favorite literary automobile? Well, I have two. I did say this was a 2 for Tag Tuesday. One would be the Bentley that 007 drives in Ian Fleming's Moonraker. It doesn't have any special gadgets, really. It's just a cool, fast, durable car. It goes up against a Mercedes and an Alfa Romeo at one point towards the end. But the other would be a car that is referred to simply as the JJ. In the story Why Johnny Can't Speed from Alan Dean Foster. It's in his collection With Friends Like These, and it posits a pretty scary world where those cars are all James Bond style gadget war cars in that story. But you might find it interesting. I certainly did. Prompt 6. A is for Anonymous, one of my favorite writers. Has an enormous body of work stretching across centuries. What is your favorite book or poem published anonymously? Well, two like longer works that I think are great. One would, of course, be the Tales from the 1001 Nights. Highly, highly recommend these. The other, though, would be Sir Gawain in the Green Knight. This is an edition that actually has it in the original Middle English with the little like marginal glosses. And I love Sir Gawain in the Green Knight. That same poet is believed to have produced a couple of other works. Patience, The Pearl, what is it, Virtue? I forget what the other one is. Cleanness, yeah. But my single favorite anonymous poem is the great ballad Sir Patrick Spens, which I had only ever had in my Viking Portable Poets of the English Language, Medieval and Renaissance Poets. And this weekend, I'm not kidding, this weekend, I found a copy of the New Penguin Book of Scottish Verse, and Sir Patrick Spens is in here among some other Scottish ballads and border ballads. They're all fantastic. What I discovered was that there's a whole middle section of Sir Patrick Spens that is in this volume that was not in the previous volume I had. And so right now I'm trying to struggle with which one I enjoy more. There's a substantial twist in the expanded edition, if you will, that's in the New Penguin Book of Scottish Verse. And I've read both versions to my daughters multiple times already. Love Sir Patrick Spens. Prompt 7. A is for autobiography. What was the last autobiography you read? If you count the cultural ethnography that Zora Neale Hurston does in Mules and Men, I read that in February. I'll link the video in the description box. I highly recommend that book. But if you want a true autobiography, the last time I read an autobiography that was an actual autobiography, it would be the narrative of the life of William Wells Brown, which I read, I want to say last December. Maybe it was last November. I think it was last November, actually. But I'll link that video as well. And that's a narrative of how he escapes from slavery. So that was the prompt 8. A is for audiobooks. Do you consider listening to an audiobook as reading? However people are able to enjoy books and get what they want and need from books, celebrate that. I think there are some books, Mrs. Dalloway would be an example, where the ways in which the stream of consciousness jumps can be very hard to perceive within an audiobook. I would imagine that Benji's section or Quentin's section of The Sound and the Fury would also be something that would be hard to understand within an audiobook. But if that's how you're able to access books, great. Go for it. The B tag. For this, I was tagged by my good friend Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. It was also by Jim. So let's jump in. 1. B is for Bildungsroman. Do you have a favorite Bildungsroman? A coming-of-age story. And I do. It would be the Bildungsroman of the alphabet, specifically the letter A in Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. The letters go through a lot in here. They go on an adventure climbing up the coconut tree. And they build community because they get each other, the other letters, to climb up the coconut tree as a team. I think that's great. And then they suffer together. You know, there's tragedy when they all fall off the coconut tree, and there are real injuries in there. Loose teeth, skin knees, stubbed toes. I mean, they really have to deal with some trials as a team of letters. But at the end of the book, A is out of bed. And this is what she said. Dare, double dare, you can't catch me. I'll beat you to the top of the coconut tree. They choose to be resilient and go back up that coconut tree. So I'm sticking with the alphabet from Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. Prompt 2, B is for beach. What would you recommend for a beach read? Well, The Waves by Virginia Woolf. But the last book I read on a beach, and I actually read this edition, this copy, on the beach. This is for Brian at Bookish, who said, don't take nice copies. I read this on Imperial Beach in San Diego, and you can see it's perfectly fine. This is Smiley's People by John le Carré. It is the third book in the great Carla trilogy. It's fantastic. I had finished The Honorable Schoolboy on our honeymoon, my wife and I, and so then this was the next book I read. So I took this out to the beach the next day and started reading it. This is the last book I read on a beach. That will be 8 years at the end of this month. Generally, we don't go to the beach very often, so when we go to the beach, it's not to read, it's to play on the beach, play in the ocean. I go running on the beach. I love to do that. It's one of my favorite ways to run, so there you go. Prompt 3, B is for best. What is the best book you have read so far this year? For fiction, and I'm only going to include first-time books I've read for the first time this year, because I've read some great books that were all rereads. But the best first-time read was The Black God's Drums by P. Djeli Clark. Absolutely loved it. I'll link that video in the description box where I discuss it. In terms of nonfiction, there's two. One would be Reporting Civil Rights Part 1, which I had started in 2020 and finished in 2021. So if it needs to be some nonfiction that I read exclusively in 2021, it will be The Infinity of Bliss by Umberto Eco. This is a masterpiece that I highly recommend. Prompt 4. B is for bookshop. Do you have a favorite bookstore? It would be Bookman's, which is primarily a used bookstore. There are locations in the three major sort of metropolitan areas of Arizona. So that's my favorite. They also have a great 20% off educator discount. So prompt 5. B is for banned books. Is there any book you think should be banned? Not banned. I prefer to suggest that people try to have balanced reading. So are there books that, certainly propagate or mythologize bad things? Yes, absolutely. And I think people need to be aware of that. We just need to recognize, and we can say, oh, it's of its time. That's great, but let's recognize that there were people who were actually hurt in real life during that time by that society, by that culture, and recognize that and be aware of that as we're reading the book. So I try to have what I call balanced books or balanced reading. For example, if I'm going to read a book by William Faulkner or Flannery O'Connor, I'm going to read something like Beloved or one of the slave narratives before or after that, so that I have balanced my mind with what I'm reading. So I don't ban books, I try to balance them. And I would encourage anybody else to do the same. Prompt 6, B is for the Bible. What is your favorite book of the Bible, and what trigger warnings do you think it should have? I'm going to go with, from the New Testament, the Gospel of Mark, which has just continued to rise in my estimation and my appreciation throughout my really late 20s and 30s now. And then the letter to the Philippians, which is one I just love, the sense of joy, and there's the pain over joy tag right there. And then from the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, I would go the Psalms. There's just so much there. There's sort of whatever I need is in the Psalms. And then Isaiah. I did a very close rereading of Isaiah last year, and then a rereading of the second half of Isaiah later on in December. And there's so much there that I just absolutely love. Prompt 7, B is for bookshelves. Show your bookshelf. There's some over there. There's some in the back. But I might be trying to work out a bookshelf tour. I don't know. We'll see. Prompt 8, B is for Brazil. Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist has been translated into 70 languages. Have you read any Coelho books? And if so, what did you think of them? I have not read any. I did not read The Alchemist. I've known people who've read The Alchemist and have told me about it, and I've discussed it without actually reading it. I should say I've learned and listened to what it has to say, and I don't know, it's not something I'm necessarily interested in. However, I am interested in reading, what do we have here? Machado de Assis. So that might be going on later this year. In terms of tagging, I would like to tag Bill Rutenberg on this one. I know he's busy with baseball, but there's a lot of B's involved there. So there you go, the A and B tags, and I hope you have a great week. Thanks.